So the first ever Under 19 World Cup edition has been launched by ourselves, Cricket Fanatics Magazine. I don't think I've ever seen a cover with an S Under 19 player on the front. So I think this is another first from Cricket Fanatics Magazine. And I'm hoping that you guys have gone and subscribed to this. It's 100% free. Link is in the description. It gives you an insight on the journey that S under 19 went on leading up to this particular World Cup that is happening very soon. Now, S under 19, of course, are going to be first traveling to the West Indies before they go to the World Cup. And we're going to be discussing this particular issue on today's show, letting you guys know what we learned ourselves as writers and as journalists covering this particular issue and speaking about this particular incidents that took place throughout the year to get the Ace Under 19s prepared to this point. So that's what we're going to be speaking about on today's show. I hope you guys will enjoy this one and you guys ask us some questions. If you have any questions, let us know in the live chat. And the super chat is also available right now for that as well. So without further ado, guys, let's get into it. Subscribe to this channel, click that notification bell for all future videos. Let's get straight into it. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Cricket Fanatics Magazine. This is your daily show. I'm your host, Khalid, this is my co-host Aditya, and today we're going to be discussing our latest issue of Cricket Fanatics Magazine, which is the S Under 19 Under 19 World Cup edition, and it's all about the S Under 19s. We interviewed the likes of Shukri Conrad, we've interviewed the likes of Kyle Southgate, who is the analyst, we've interviewed Neil McKenzie. There are some players that have been spoken to as well, and we've given a deep dive into their preparations for this World Cup. But before we get started on the actual content that was here, I would just like to speak a little bit about myself when it comes to this under 19s and why I was so invested in this and why I wanted to put them on the front cover of a magazine, which is kind of unheard of in South African sport. My reasoning behind it is because when I started as a journalist, I made it my mission to try and understand how youth cricket in South Africa works, how the under 19 system works, how the school system works, and are we doing enough for these school kids to get the right promotion to get seen in the public? And of course, not only from the public perspective, but are the franchises getting enough opportunities and the franchise coaches getting enough opportunities to see these young talents in action? Now, for a very long time, South Africa has been involved with Coke Weeks or Kaya Majola Weeks, as it's now known, as well as schools weeks and province weeks like Cubs weeks as well, which takes place. You get your SA schools weeks as well. You get, for example, Cape Schools Week, where there's some of the best schools in Cape Town play against each other. And there are many other weeks around the country which we can talk about, which promotes the young talent in this country. Now, what I love about youth cricket is that these boys and these young girls, when we watch the women's cricket as well, they have this dream to play for the country and this unbelievable burning desire to want to play the best cricket that they possibly can and walk in the footsteps of their heroes. So a lot of the time, what we do is we can see them, their raw talent in action, and we can see what they are good at, what they lack, what type of mentality they have, etc. That's all possible for us to see when we are watching these youngsters in action. So, what's nice about it is that a lot of the players, when they become professionals, they go back to what made them special at their root core. Because sometimes they tend to forget what made them fall in love with the sport in the first place and what made them good at the sport in the first place. So it's nice to revisit this. So I think this issue of SA under 19s cricket and SA under 19s team and squad it will give people almost like the guys that are professional, it will give them like almost a refresher course in a way to remember what it was like when they were growing up and they were under 19 and they were going on this type of journey. It also gives a nice nod to the future players, the under 16s or the under 17s that are under 13s even that are dreaming to follow in this in the footsteps of so many other under 19 players. So it gives you a nice in-depth discussion and in-depth analysis on what are required, what is required of them from the national coach, for example, and what is required of them to become an is under 19 player and go further in their career. But I think with the interview with Shukri, which is exclusively on this channel, you can go ahead and look at that. What that taught me is that it's not just about necessarily winning games and just winning games and just getting through them. It's also about the development of these players as human beings and as professionals. They don't only want to win, but they want to win in the right way too. You know, playing a specific brand of cricket with a specific and have fun. That's something that has come through consistently through all the interviews that we've done. So let's get into it. Aditya, I think the best way to start is with probably your article because it touches on a subject that we also asked the three Western Province boys as well about the video analysts and Kyle Southgate and the S under 19s going in that direction. I mean, I asked Shukri the same question and asked him about that. You know, he's a guy that's not necessarily heavily into technology, etc. He's learning these things now. His son is teaching him and so forth, but he's learning about these things now, and that's the direction you have to go. You have to adapt. So, from your conversation with Carl Southgate, and I urge you guys to go read the interview and the article because it's an excellent article. Um, what did you learn from that experience and reading the mag in general?
If we're talking specifically about Carl Southgate, personally, I'm always fascinated with what performance analysts have to offer a team because it's a relatively new phenomenon in cricket. And if you think about it, we have these conversations about the specific brand of cricket or uh, or teams evolving the style of play, whether it's the T20 format or the ODI format, as England have done. But if you're really honest, the seed for that evolution in the brand of cricket begins with a performance analyst because they're the ones who are detecting patterns in your game. They're detecting patterns through the course of a game. And based on that information, teams go out and execute their plans. So having performance analysts like Kyle Southgate is more than imperative for any team. In the Indian team, that transition took place in 2002, and it's something I mentioned in the article as well because Sachin Tendulkar, who had started playing in 1989, saw a laptop in the dressing room for the first time in 2002, and he was confused as to how it's going to help anyone play cricket better. But obviously, eventually, it did. Um, so that was one thing. But another thing that's really important about having someone like Kyle Southgate in the team is that a lot of his job, in addition to transferring information to players, is about people management. Because
Yeah.
players are still trying to identify that balance between having information and not having too much information and operating on instinct, right? Like MS Dhoni, for example, he doesn't attend team meetings, he doesn't talk to analysts, nothing of the sort. He's not into that sort of thing. He plays the game on the field. And at the under 19 level, at the under 19 level, they're still trying to discover that, so it's interesting. And I was more than enthralled by that conversation. But we often talk about players being either for it or reluctant to employ
Mhm.
video analysis. We also have to think about how they work with coaches, because remember, all the coaches in this generation were playing at a time when there was no video analysis whatsoever. So they are learning on the job too. And Kyle Southgate basically has to manage that also. He's obviously trying to get players uh, to buy into what he's saying, but he also has to do the same with coaches, and I'm sure that's not easy.
Yeah, not at all. And these modern day cricketers, they all into YouTube, etc., and watching cricketers on YouTube and learning from them. They and seeing these video footage, which a lot of players didn't have in the past. I mean, even in before that, if you're talking about apartheid, the players of color, they never really had anybody to look up to necessarily, unless uh, only their own local players that were playing around in their areas, etc. So they never really had opportunities to watch even the likes of those um, ex- greats that we talk about in the game. Normally, how we know and how we grew up is you see a player play on TV, or you watch the player live, and you said, "Wow, I loved this player, and I'm being inspired to want to play like him." I mean, I remember when I was a kid, and I used to love Herschel Gibbs. And when I was playing in primary school for my school, we had collars on our shirts, and I used to put my collar up like Herschel. The only difference is I was a left-handed batter, but I used to put my collar up like Herschel, and I wanted to bat like Herschel Gibbs, and that was my entire primary school years. That's all I wanted to be, is Herschel Gibbs. So like, it's one of those things where in the modern day era, it's now gone to even more technical when it comes to watching videos on YouTube. You can see something over and over and over and over again. You can pause and stop and play and repeat and do all of those type of things over and over again. Whereas before that wasn't around. So now with video analysts and etc., kids are so used to doing that already that when you show them a video in more depth, I'm sure they pick up a lot more now because they're so used to using technology. I think COVID also, like in South Africa, I can talk about only South Africa right now, but they were learning via technical means. I mean, one of my friend's kids, and his son is actually my friend too. He was this whole schooling career was this whole schooling period now in high school was through computers and watch and and communicate before they got an opportunity to go to back to school again, and be amongst other kids. But like, I mean, this generation is so used to technology. I mean, look how TikTok has blown up, and people are on TikTok every 24 hours, just searching through 15-second videos. The concentration span is so small. um yeah, but Aditya, when it comes to the rest of the mag, is there anything else that you really enjoyed, or that stood out to you, that you really thought that was an interesting information that you never knew before?
Plenty. Um, I loved Neil Mackenzie's insight, specifically the part where he revealed that CSA had employed a tutor, Brendan, uh,
Yeah.
who who gave math lessons to the boys, and uh, and the fact that he was also he also used a sidearm, right?
Hmm.
So the fact that he said that he couldn't tell whether players preferred math revision with him or facing him for the sidearm at 150 was hilarious. It was
Yeah.
unbelievable. And obviously Neil Mackenzie is like he's like a batting encyclopedia. You know, we've watched interviews of him in the past as well, where you know he's talked extensively about spin play and just the nuances of batting, which I think
Mm.
are I think the gold for anyone who aspires to be a top level batter. But I think also Shukri Conrad and what he said about Dewold Brevis was insightful. You know, in which he said that there's a difference between being an entertainer and scoring runs, but hopefully we can you know can score runs and entertain at the same time and can do it for a long period of time. I thought that was useful
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, this was excellent. And we obviously saw some interviews that I have done with some of the guys, which is on this channel that you guys can go look at. But let's give you a quick update. We are still trying to find out when the West Indies tour section of this particular tour, because they're leaving on Friday. So we're still trying to figure out what dates they are playing, because I asked around and none of the players could answer me quite yet. They're so focused on getting ready and getting the tests and everything done so that they can get in order on the plane so they can go. But I do have the fixtures for the under 19 for the World Cup itself, that we did provide within the mag as well. But Saturday, the 15th of January, 4 o'clock South African Standard Time, India will take on South Africa. That's the opening game for them. So that's going to be a proper match, a proper blockbuster in the opening fixture for South Africa. Then you have Tuesday, the 18th of January. And if you listen to Shukri Conrad, he said that India has to worry about South Africa. So you better watch out there, teacher. So Tuesday, 18th of January at 4 South African Standard Time, South Africa will take on Uganda. And then Friday, the 21st of January, South Africa will take on Ireland at 4 South African Standard Time. So it's all at the same times, which is nice. Nice time for us as well. It's not going to be too late. It might end later than we would like, obviously, but we will be around covering this tournament in depth as best as possible. South Africa should be able to get out of that group, and Shukri Conrad did mention that he would be quite disheartened and upset if they don't make it through the group, because they really believe that they have a standard chance to win this World Cup, and they have the talent. They have the all bases covered, as he said. Spinners, all rounders, batters, top order, middle order. They're actually more balanced than South Africa and the Proteas team, if you think about it. So they've got a lot more options available.
But they're also a really mature side. Like we've
Yeah.
talked to so many players. We've talked to all the players yesterday, Ethan Cunningham and Saka, and they were Bravis and everyone. And I think they're really ahead of their times in terms of the players that they are, in terms of the people that they are, and the way that they think about the game.
Yeah.
And for them to think about the game and even talk to us in the way that they did, and be as eloquent as they were, is fantastic, and it speaks volumes of them as individuals and Shukri Conrad as coach.
Yeah, because we know that he's a tough guy, but I've sensed that he's adapted so well to this role. Like, I honestly think that Shukri is one of the best coaches in the country. If I have to, if I had to mention it, I think that the way he thinks about cricket, like some of the boys said, like even when we spoke to Daniel Smith, his former under 19 captain, who's now playing for the Western Province Blitz, he said he's like a genius of cricket. So it's the perfect appointment, because when he's speaking to these kids that have just been playing for the passion, the amount that they can learn from a guy like Shukri, who has worked with some of the best players in the country's ever produced. He's worked with the likes of Virgil Gibbs, with Shark Cullis, with Graham Smith, with all of these stars that we talk about. He's worked with. They've been under him as a coach. So there's so much these guys can learn. I mean, even Shukri as a player is well respected. So there's so much that they can learn from a guy like him. And I think his attitude and the way they think about this game is phenomenal. And I think that these kids, I mean, when they speak about, we speak to so many Proteas players at each when we speak to them and ask them about this smart brand of cricket and what does that mean, etc. I mean, these under 19 kids were answering it. When we asked them, what does that mean exactly? They answered the question. That shows that the message is coming through from the coach, because that's one of the questions I asked him, because it's pointless us having this talk about, oh, we'll be playing the smart brand of cricket all the time, but we don't understand, or the players don't understand what smart means. And yes, it's got a lot to do with, and what I've learned from it is that it's got a lot to do with reading the conditions. It's got a lot to do with backing your own game, and it's got a lot to do with being a team player as well as being an individual. It's not just about scoring for yourself, it's also about reading the situation and understanding what you need to do as a player in that situation. So we've seen these players mature. And I think it was such a great move from Shukri as well and the staff to allow these boys to play 3-day cricket, be in the T20 knockout games, playing against the senior players. some of the best players in the country that are way older, 5, 6, 7, 10 years older than them. They are getting the experience that they can only dream of. Club cricket was supposed to expose these boys to that, but the level is completely different. So they're getting the experience from playing against top level professionals, as well as getting that experience of playing against guys that are almost 5, 6, 7 years older than them, sometimes 10. So it's very interesting to see how they've developed and they've matured. I mean, like you said, we've spoken to a lot of these guys, and the way they talk about cricket is like, I enjoy my conversations with them. Like me, who's much older than them, can hold a conversation with them and talk about cricket, like, and learn new things from them too, because of the way they approach things. So yeah, I think it's gonna be an exciting World Cup. I don't want to put too much pressure on the guys. I just think they need to go out there and just play their best cricket and enjoy their time out in the middle and learn as much as they can from everybody around them. Um, there's going to be a lot of young talent on offer, and that's the main thing, because we don't often get to see people, these youngsters in action, unless you were like I mentioned in my this note. um there's not a lot of guys that are the players that get the opportunity, or guys that get the opportunity to go watch these Sky Majorla weeks, like especially now during COVID. The Cubs week was very cordoned off, for COVID reasons. It was a strict bubble. No one was allowed in. I got special permission to be able to go in and go and watch it and cover it. We needed to make sure that our temperature and all of those things. This was the beginning of COVID, like, so it was very strict. Um, so I did get response from the media manager right now about the West Indies tour, and they're still waiting for the final match dates from them, from West Indies. And as soon as they have it, they will pass it on to me. So we will know as soon as possible, Werner. So yeah, that is the confirmation that we have right now. Okay, so I think you guys need to go read this issue, go watch our content, do all of those things, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to this episode, of Cricket Fanatics Magazine. Every single edition is 100% free, straight to your inbox every single month. If you have any questions, you can ask us. But Aditya, is there anything else you want to touch on in the news? What is something that you've seen in the news? Because there's something else that we can speak about a little bit. That really, it really upset me that it came out then, smack bang in the middle of our launch. It happened. So I haven't even had a chance to share the actual release with everybody because I was trying to promote our bag. So I think we could dedicate the show tomorrow to it, but let's touch on it a little bit.
Sure, are we talking about the SJN here?
I want to receive you on the same wavelength as me, guys. See, I'm testing out Richa constantly every day.
See, because that's going on in South African cricket. Virat Kohli's bombshell press conference is talk of town in Indian cricket. So it's yeah, I mean, either way, there's been a lot that's gone on today in the world of cricket.
Yeah, I like the way I've started reading it. It's like 200 and odd pages.
25 to 25 pages.
Well, he knows exactly the amount. So there's 225 pages. So like for me to go through all of that right now, I didn't get a chance to read everything. I read the first couple of pages, and I like the way they've structured it, explaining in detail everything and the reason for having the exchange. And I think that's very important, is that they describe the racism and its meaning to South Africa. And they explain the BLM movement and how it affects South Africa. And that's what I like, because you'll get an education from that point of view on why it's important to us, that it's not necessarily fully about the Black Lives Matter movement in America and what they are striking for. What they are standing up for, what they are striking for, is different to what we are striking for. They also gave um, a nice overview of what happened with Lungi Ngidi and those players that stood against him, and said some pretty nasty things on social media about him. I remember that day clearly because I had the first exclusive interview with Lungi the day that the hashtag we stand with Lungi trended on Twitter and on all social media platforms. I had him that afternoon. So we spoke. I wanted people to hear his story, to hear that he struggled, to hear what he had to go through. And then I asked him as well on the Black Lives Matter movement. But we get caught up in the we get caught up in the small things, the little things, to try and debunk something that means something bigger than what it is. So we need to be able to read through and try to adapt what has been said in there to what our situation is. Um, um, yeah, so even a statement from AB de Villiers came out as well. I know Vern is touching on it over here, but we'll probably get into this. We'll do a lot more research, and when we're ready, guys, I think we'll do a show on it and have a discussion of what happened in there. Um, Everything was dealt with. The Boucher situation, his appointment was one of the main themes in there. We know the situation with that, and it's been confirmed now in that particular SJN review, you could say, and a report. So there are question marks, and there's going to be questions asked that need to be answered, and we're still waiting for answers. But I don't think we're going to do that on today's show and spoil this whole stream, which I was enjoying. Anything else that you've seen recently in the news, maybe on Twitter, DJ, that we can speak about? This is the daily show, so we might as well dive into things that we've seen around Twitter.
Well, there is a standoff of sorts between Virat Kohli and the BCCI with
Oh,
respect to how the entire captaincy situation was handled, and it's become a my word versus your word sort of situation between Virat Kohli and the BCCI, and he came out all guns blazing in a press conference, and he's taken on the BCCI basically.
so it sounds a little bit like CSA problems you guys are having there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Except,
See, guys, it's not only cricket South Africa that have issues. The politics in sport is everywhere.
oh my goodness, with the BCCI, good lord. Uh, but he's taken them on, and trust me, in a country where with 1.3 billion people crazy about this game, and you're basically carrying the mantle of Indian cricket on your shoulders to go head on and tell the media exactly what you feel and what really transpired between his communications with the BCCI. We don't know what the outcome of it will be, but you need to have guts of steel. So whatever you think about Virat Kohli and his cricket is a separate issue, but for him to come out in that press conference takes serious guts of steel, and I don't see another cricketer in the world doing that, to be perfectly honest.
Fuff.
Faf Faf du Plessis, absolutely, he can, yeah, we've seen.
I mean, I've loved Virat Kohli. Like, I don't know. He doesn't probably remember me, but I will always remember that moment where he didn't even have to say hello to me or say anything to me or speak to me, and he did. Like on the way back from on the way to the press conference, he greeted me and said hi, and he said he saw me in the press conference about new. Like, there was no need for him to do stuff like that. Like, I really respect him. I think Virat is a top cricketer and a top human being in my opinion. But that's just from the small interaction I had with him. I probably walked with him for like 30 seconds, guys. So it was crazy because when I came out of the presser afterwards, there were a lot of Indian fans screaming at me, and I didn't know they were screaming at me. But they probably, because they were all standing there watching Virat obviously coming into the presser, so they probably saw me walk with Virat. And then after the presser, it was like I was giving, like, they were like walking me and they talking to me, but I don't know, I didn't know they were talking to me. So I'm looking at them and then I'm like looking to the left. I was still new, like, trust me. So I was like all like in the soul, but it was like my first ever like proper test series to cover. So I'm looking at them and they're looking at me and they're pointing, but they're not like, I don't know, because they don't know my name obviously, so they can't like shout my name. So I just had I'm like looking at him, and the guy's like, I look at him and he's waving, and then I'm like walking on, and then I look and he's next to me here, and I'm like, wait, what is going on? He's waving at me. So I was like, I walked on because I didn't know what was going on. I was a bit scared. I didn't know what was going on, but I think it's crazy, man. It's amazing to see that, to see how these players are embraced by everyone and by the world. I mean, Virat is an excellent player. I just hope he doesn't come here, like Werner says in the comment section. I hope he doesn't come here and take his frustration out on us, because that would be nice from South African perspective.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he plays without the load of the captaincy on his shoulders, because I think
Need
if you look at Virat as a white ball captain, he's
Mhm.
he's typically been a bit behind the game. His statistics are unbelievable, and it's a product of the team that he's been with. But I think generally he's a bit behind the game in white ball cricket, whereas he's spot on with red ball cricket tactically. Um, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I I personally feel like it's going to take a load of Virat's shoulders, and he's just going to sort of come in and express himself again, without having that additional responsibility. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, guys. So thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to smash the subscribe button. Subscribe to Cricket Fanatics Magazine Monthly. The link is in the description. The latest issue is out, the SA Under-19 World Cup edition. So go ahead and check that out. We've gone very in depth with this one. We've given you different angles and given you different understandings of players and the coaches and what their view is on this particular tournament. So go ahead and subscribe to that. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you guys again with another daily show. Take care, everyone.